we all know that mixed voice isn't a register on its own. It's like going from A to B, there's something in between. It's not a quantum leap. A quantum leap means I'm going from this to that without an in between. That's a quantum leap. Like, you know, atoms do that. Particles do that. They're here and now they're there. And they don't get from here to there. They're just here and then they're there. But the human body, now we could get into quantum physics, but we're not. We're physical beings, and although we might only perceive as being physical, that's the reality for us. So there's always a state that is between A and B, and that is the mixed voice. So between oh no 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 and oh, there's an in-between area that I can go to. That is the transition between the two, and that tilt in the larynx. You know, there's a movement. There's, let's just say, open, closed. Let's just say that. There is that motion between open and closed, between tilted and untilted. So you can begin to tilt and tilt it a little bit, or tilt a little bit more. That's the area where it becomes mixed register, to where you're in between, somewhere between this and that state. Now, the thing about chest voice, and you've commented both about it, I remember how many years ago now, 15 years ago, when I did opera all the time, then from doing opera all the time in professional productions to moving to singing with a band all the time that did dance music and the old classics like oldies and rock and pop and ABBA. I remember that a C5, mama, mama, that was not quite possible. I know that I went up to a B flat or so at that time, mama, mama, and everything that was above that, I couldn't quite do unless I would have had to really sing in a very heavy, shouted way. Wasn't possible. So, you know, what I did for my gigs, of course, I went just into head voice, which I already knew how to sing head voice without sounding extremely operatic, like, oh! There's different ways, right? So instead of dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17. If that had been too high for me, I would just kind of go in a heady mix. Dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17. It's not extremely operatic, but it wasn't chest voice, and it wasn't really what I wanted. But after doing this for maybe a year or so, I noticed a big difference. And I mean, I did it a lot. I was singing professionally with a band, and I was gigging around, and we did a lot of stuff. That's when I really started to feel the difference into where I could sing higher, and then the B flat and the C didn't need to be shouted at quite as heavy, because now, no, no, I could now do a D, and so the B flat was now like, no, 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 oh, it's very easy now to sing in chest voice. So it is natural that you need to really sing heavy first before you can lighten it up, before you can do the fine tuning, right? Okay. I've heard it said that people come to our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn. We are to those who help us grow if we let them, and we help them in return. So just that first part, it is in chest register, but of course it's not heavy. The problem here is that if you don't really do a lot of changing the tightness of your vocal cords as you're crescendoing toward those a little higher pitches, so it has this range between I've heard it said I've heard it said. So you always have to think of that progression of relaxed more, and then when I get higher, I gotta just put a little bit more tightness to where my vocal cords do close a little more, and I'm engaging those arytenoids muscles just a little bit more so that I will definitely be in chest voice. The trick is to not think static, because if I think static, and you know, another problem of course is that the original singer, she has this very bright voice. It's really hard to distinguish like when she sings what she's doing, because it sounds very light and bright. That's why it's even harder to hear and feel the difference, but you really have to think of more chest voice when you're here. This is not high yet, so if you start head voice, you're constantly having to transition, which is just too much work, and it makes for an inconsistent sound. So I've heard it said that people, and very relaxed, that people come into our lives, come into our lives. So I don't come into our lives. What's important is that I don't darken. I open my throat way, really nice. It's like, opening up and making a nice, I always call it the friendly tone, like make it, you know, sound really friendly and kind. You don't want to sound da 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 for a reason. It's heavy. We don't want heavy. For a reason. And then lighten up and be nice and kind again. Bringing someone we must learn, and we are there to those who help us grow, help us most to grow. If now we're at an F, which isn't extremely high, but it's probably already an area for many female singers where there's the first passaggio happening. If we learn them and we help them to return, now we can start to be more excited. I don't know if I believe that's true, but how was it? But I know who I am today because I knew you. And now I have to use my breath in order to really tighter vocal cord closure, more compression in my breath to sustain and to actually support that higher chest sound without leaning just on my vocal cords like a comet pulled from orbit. Now I'm just leaning on my vocal cords, but I don't want that. I want the compression. I want to stay open here and have that fine-tuning control, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the world. So you want to keep that openness, that da 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 da. You always want to be on the verge of connecting a little bit looser vocal cords. That makes it sound almost like mix, right? We talked about mix. Mix could be anything that's not all the way heavy chest, all the way heavy voice, so head. So by just lightening up the pressure, that's what makes it sound mixed a lot of times, even when it's low. So instead of, you know, halfway through the wall, who can say if I've been changed? It's too heavy, right? So we need to, again, that progression of more vocal cord closure as I'm moving up, and it's okay to be just a little heavier on the top, but as soon as I'm coming down from that top, that would totally flip into head voice if I lightened up just a little bit. I need to, when I go lower again, lighten it up and let my vocal cords like just relax just a little bit, enough to have that brightness and kindness in the voice again. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I knew you. I felt the change. course, it has also a lot to do with connecting. Don't think there's a pitch, there's a pitch, there's a pitch, but like the pearls on the string that we talked about before, I have been changed. So I'm not, I have been changed. It's not like one pitch sits somewhere and that's it, but I'm starting a pitch and it's evolving. Each and every pitch is evolving. When it's longer, it's evolving a little more. I'm doing something with a pitch. And I feel that that is exactly what helps me give it more spin and more brilliance. When you're moving the pitch, it's almost like you want to keep it in motion. Even though you're not changing the pitch, you still can keep the pitch in motion by giving it, it's almost like, come on, come on, come on, pitch. It's like you got to do something because your support is more engaged when you do that, when you have the micro level control over slight dynamic changes. It takes a lot of control from your support to do that. And then when that happens, you're more supported and the tone just begins sparkling more.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved us.